Good evening, everyone. My name is Mendel Aquino Garcia. My topic for today is about how step to design rubrics and terms to be used in rubrics. What are the steps to design a rubrics? Step 1. Define your goal. Before you can create a rubric, you need to decide the type of rubric you'd like to use, and that will largely be determined by your goals for the assessment. Step 2. Choose a rubric type. Although there are many variations of rubrics, it can be helpful to at least have a standard set to help you decide where to start. Here are the two that are widely used in teaching as defined by analytic rubrics. This is the standard grid rubric that many teachers routinely uses to assess students' work. This is the optimal rubric for providing clear, detailed feedback. With an analytic rubric, criteria for the student's work is listed in the left common and performance level as listed across the top. Second, holistic rubric. This is the type of rubric that is much easier to create but much more difficult to use accurately. Typically, a teacher provides a series of letter grades or a range of numbers, 1 to 4 or 1 to 6 for example, and then assign expectations for each of those scores. Step 3. Determine your criteria. This is where the learning objectives for your unit of course come into play. Here you'll need to brainstorm a list of knowledge and skills you would like to assess for the project. Step 4. Create your performance levels. Once you have determined the broad levels you would like student to demonstrate mastery of, you will need to figure out what types of scores you will assign based on each level of mastery. Most rating scales include between 3 or 5 levels. Some teachers use a combination of numbers and descriptive labels like 4 exceptional, 3 satisfactory. Step 5. Write descriptors for each level of your rubric. This is probably your most difficult step in creating a rubric. Here you will need to write short statement of your expectation underneath each performance level for every single criteria. The descriptions should be specific and measurable. Step 6. Revise your rubric. After creating the descriptive language for all of the levels, making sure it is parallel, specific, and measurable. You need to go back through and limit your rubric to a single page. Too many parameters will be difficult to assess at once and may be an ineffective way to assess student mastery of a specific standards. Consider the effectiveness of the rubric, asking for student understanding and co-teacher feedback before moving forward. Do not be afraid to revise as necessary. It may even be helpful to grade a sample project in order to gauge the effectiveness of your rubric. You can always adjust the rubric if need be before handing it out, but once it's distributed, it will be difficult to retract. Terms to be used in a rubric. Different assignment types may require different grading scales and different numbers of levels. As you develop your rubric, decide how many different levels it should have. For example, you may choose a rubric with 3 or 4 levels for an easy assignment, while a 1-level rubric or credit no credit may be useful for smaller assignment and save you time when grading. You may also consider whether the list the highest possible level of achievement first or last. Be mindful with your word choice with labeling your rating scales, especially if the grading rubrics will be shared with the student. As Stephen and Levy note, labeling the levels on the scale can be a delicate matter. We need to be clear about expectation and about failures as well as successes. Yet, we also try to avoid overly negative or competitive labels. This can discourage students. 3 levels: weak, satisfactory, strong; beginning, intermediate, high; weak, average, excellent; developing, competent, exemplary; low mastery, average mastery, high mastery. 4 levels: unacceptable, marginal, proficient, distinguished; beginning, developing, accomplished, exemplary; needs improvement, satisfactory, good, accomplished; emerging, progressing, partial, mastery, mastery; not yet competent, partly competent, competent, sophisticated; inadequate, needs improvement, meets expectations, exceed expectation; poor, fair, good, excellent. 5 levels: poor, minimal, sufficient, above average, excellent; novice, intermediate, proficient, distinguished, master; unacceptable, poor, satisfactory, good, excellent. 6 levels: unacceptable, emerging, minimally, acceptable, acceptable, accomplished, exemplary. Thank you for listening.